Hey, Laura, I am
Hi.
so excited to chat today and share your story. And you are brand new into the creative entrepreneur thing and
Yes.
just came back 2 months ago from a 4-week vacation. So your story is incredible. I think it's going to blow people's mind on how you built a sustainable business from the beginning. So let's just dive in first and say who you are, what your company is, and how long you've been in business.
Awesome. Well, so I'm Laura Michael, and I run a business that specializes in watercolor branding and brand development, and also watercolor illustration. I've been in business for only 11 months, so crazy. But it's been really fun, and yeah,
That's
pretty much it.
You are so very talented. Everybody go look Laura up. She's so good. So tell me first what you were doing before. I mean, so you've been in business 11 months now, full time. Were you doing this on the side for a while, or did you just quit your business and quit your job and start a business?
Well, so before this, I was working full-time as a graphic designer, and in college, I started out as an art major, then switched to graphic design because everyone says, not sustainable, but I don't think that's true. But anyways, so I was working full-time as a graphic designer. I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I wanted something that was going to be more hands-on. I didn't love sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours, just not my thing. And whenever I would work with my design clients, I would always try and push them towards using watercolor elements and incorporating those into the graphic design. Sometimes they would be receptive to it. Sometimes they're like, no, not my thing. So anyway, I started an Etsy shop while I was still working full-time as a graphic designer, kind of as a creative outlet side hustle thing. And I never expected it to lead into this, but so I started that in the fall of 2016 and did that for a year and kind of grew my watercolor skills and all of that. And then I knew I've always wanted to be a business owner. I've always wanted to have my own business, be a freelancer, and it was right. Last October, around that time, so prayed a lot about it. I was like, okay, I think it's the time. So went ahead and took the leap, and then I was able to use all of the skills that I had continued to acquire through my Etsy shop and start my business, still doing mostly graphic design, not planning on going into watercolor branding and brand development because, people don't really know what that is, and I didn't really even know. I didn't have a name for what I was doing. So anyways, started there. But after skipping ahead a little bit, January I took the blueprint model, and after going through your course and getting some advice from you, I launched into specific niche markets of the brand development with the watercolor. So,
what made you think to yourself, I need to take a business course or financial planning course? I mean, what made you even think, as you were 2 months into business and you were running your business at that time full time.
Yeah.
You had quit your job. So what made you think I need some help, or I just need to do this? Kind of tell me about where you were feeling at the time.
Well, I knew it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. And I just kind of realized that. And I was working super hard, and I was doing, I had a lot of business. My first month out, I doubled my salary from my old job, which is crazy.
What? Your first month of business?
My first month of business. It was crazy, which we can talk more about that in a second. But that was not a sustainable, I was working 14-hour days, and it was just, I was so overloaded. And then as the months continued to go by, November was a little bit slower, December was a little bit slower, and I was still doing a lot of work. So the income was not necessarily matching my work. And I was like, I know I'm missing something. I need help. Yeah. And I had heard from a friend, Sarah Irvin from Southerly Flower Farm, about you and your course, and talked a little bit about it. And I was like, well, I don't really have the money to spend on a course like that right now. because it is an investment. But I applied for the scholarship in the fall and didn't get the scholarship, but it really like started kind of getting my wheels turning. I was like, this might be something that I need, and it turns out it completely revolutionized my business, and the investment I made on the course paid off so much in the time management skills and like the financial skills that I learned, which is like, you can't put a number on that. It was so much peace of mind. And it was really important for me to have a sustainable income that would actually work for our family, because my husband was in PT school at the time and I was the sole income provider. So it was kind of like, this has to work. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I was doing it right and starting out right.
Yeah. I think that's really amazing how so many people are just trying to get to the income level they need. You were at the income level that you needed, but you were working 14 hours a day and learning and seeing that your dollar amount per hour, maybe you were making more in the end of the day, but you were working so many more hours. So going through the blueprint model, or just like, what was your aha moment? What was the moment where like, okay, this is how I make it sustainable, which means you're making income you need to make and having a life.
Exactly. Yeah.
It needs to be both.
Yeah, exactly. And from the beginning, like, even though the first month and really like month and a half-ish were super busy, those long days, I decided from the beginning I was not going to work weekends. I was going to take vacations, to spend time with Max, my husband, and time with my family. I was going to take Christmas, like a week, plenty of time. I had experienced that feeling before, and so that first month in October, I was just kind of like trying to press the brakes a little bit. Like, I don't really want this. I don't want this speed. Like, although my bank account looks good right now, it's not like, I am not getting the satisfaction that I know I can have from freelancing. So I kind of like started to readjust, and with freelancing, there's so much ebb and flow. There's slow seasons, there's busy seasons, and the winter was really, really slow, honestly. And I think that kind of helped me shift my gears into like, what is important to me and why am I doing this, and kind of like take a step back and being like, being busy doesn't necessarily mean being successful.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't even mean making enough money a lot of times if you're not charging what you should. Yeah. And I definitely was not charging what I needed to charge at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
How did you figure out, so kind of talk me through, you're getting to a burnout stage, you are trying to build something sustainable while also providing for your family. If anybody else listening is in that place and where you were come October, November, what were the first like 1 or 2 or 3 steps that you took, or through the blueprint model, or however, what happened? Was it changing pricing?
Yeah.
Was it niching down? You kind of tell me, like, what were the steps you took to make a difference?
Yeah, for sure. I think initially, before I took the blueprint model, I wanted to, kind of like I said, it had to be a profitable business from day one. Like, I didn't have an option. And so I think that being efficient with the money that I was making and finding little ways to save money, and like doing super unglamorous things like going to the library to scan in my paintings because it's free and they have a high-res scanner, just like being smart with my resources and things like that. That was really helpful, just to not, outspend the paycheck that you're making, because the slow months do come. But then once I learned everything I did in the blueprint model, figuring out what was making me money and what wasn't, because I was still doing quite a bit of work through my Etsy shop, and I realized that the prints that I thought I was making so much money off of were making me like dollars, like $2, $3, just so few dollars after I figured out my time and my money investment. And I think that another huge thing was valuing your time as money, because it's easy to be like, oh, well, I only spent $50 on this project in materials, and I made $120, so great, $70, whatever. But then you're not counting your time. It's like, oh, that was 4 hours of my time. I'm not doing so good. So, yeah. So I think that figuring that out was huge. And being able to say no to projects, I think, is a big thing, too, because I'm still working on it. It is hard for me. But, yeah, I take a note from Brene Brown, choose discomfort over resentment, because it's like I would so much rather be uncomfortable and saying no, and like maybe making, they're not happy with that, but I also don't want to drain myself and push myself past my limits in order to give them a product that I kind of end up resenting at the end because I didn't make any money off of it.
Yeah. All of these are like such hard lessons that every new business owner has to learn. Okay, but in your first year in business, you guys took a 4-week trip, and I know that was already planned and not paid for through your business, but that's still like, how did you take that time off without every day feeling like I'm ruining my business? I mean, I'm not going to come back to a business. I think that's just like hard, even as an established business owner, but you were in your very first year, just to like take that time for life.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think I had a little bit of practice with that, with like smaller Christmas breaks and things like that. But honestly, it took a lot of trust. I was like, okay, God, we're just going to go and I'm not going to check my email. But I felt a lot of peace about it because I knew that I think I had built up a client base where I had really good relationships with them, and I talked with them a lot before, and I warned them, or I don't even think you can say warned, because that sounds bad, but like I just let them know that we were going to be gone. I just think letting people know your boundaries is really important, and not checking my email and not like being in, work mode mindset was really, really helpful and so important because the trip was it was something that we really needed, and it was just amazing. But I think that just knowing that you can come back to it and kind of pick up where you left off and just leave everything so that you can be at peace. Put your email notifications on so that people can know. Let them know that you care about them and you're excited to work with them in the future. And amazingly enough, I came back to more work than I had when I left. Yeah. So it was incredible. Pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy.
I think you picked right back up where you were and you were doing better. Yeah.
We were home a week and I was fully booked.
That's amazing. And you talked about before we started recording too, like just the freedom and knowing what you have to have, knowing your enough number.
Exactly.
And I think in all things, I mean, of course, but like what I preach in the Blueprint Mind, same for me, like people ask a lot, how do you take sabbatical every year and how do you take time off? And the only way I find freedom to do that is I know what I need.
Yep.
And I also, like you said, I define the boundary. Mm-hmm. Like, did you check email once a week? Or, you probably were on email a little bit. But I just think that's amazing. And I love your story in that just you have built something profitable and sustainable in the first year of your business. And I think that's really inspiring to hear because often we have to get to utter burnout.
Yeah.
Before we're like, okay, enough is enough.
Exactly.
I think that's amazing. What would you say to kind of anybody listening? Well, I have 2 questions. One might catch you off guard, but what would you say to anybody listening who is experiencing burnout or that's like, I want to take time off, but I'm afraid I will come back to a business that's not there. What would you kind of say as encouragement from your own experience?
Yeah, I think definitely like we were talking about earlier, just knowing what's enough for you. Like when you look at my income, some people might be really impressed by it. Some people might be really underwhelmed, but it really doesn't matter because I can't compare what's enough for me to what's enough for other people. So I just think being satisfied with that, sitting down and kind of making your financial plan, whatever that means. Like, what's your monthly goal? What's your weekly goal? Sometimes you'll reach it, sometimes you won't, sometimes you'll exceed it. But just have something to aim for, and like taking time when you're in your right mind, not when you're stressed, to like make a schedule for yourself and set those goals for yourself. Like, will I check email once a week while I'm gone? You know, don't make those choices when you're super frazzled and at your wit's end. Like, you know, take a step back, and because then you'll look back and it's almost like you have an assistant, which is your former self, you know, telling you what to do, and then you can be at peace with your choices.
Yeah, I love that. Sure. Okay, and my last question is, what is the best thing that you have learned about money?
The best thing? Well, I've learned so much about money, but the best thing I've learned is that it's really simple, but that you control your money. Don't let your money control you. I think having a budget has been huge for me. I used to kind of have the theory of like, spend as little as possible, don't check the bank account because that's scary, and then hope that you like spent less than you made and you have, you know, an income by the end of the month, which is really a terrible plan. But now I have my little spreadsheet. I have budgets for how much I spend on painting supplies, how much I spend on my Adobe applications each month, all of that. And it's like I have these monthly goals and budgets. And then it doesn't have to be scary. And I have my my spreadsheet pulled up with my income and spending, and, you know, it's just, it doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah.
I think just a little planning goes a long way.
I love that. A little planning goes a long way. I also feel like it's, once you know the numbers, I feel like it's probably scarier for you. I don't know if you would say it, definitely for me, not to know.
Yeah, exactly.
That feeling of, you know, people say like I'm bleeding money. That's how so many of my clients before, I mean, you know, they're like, I just feel like I'm cash in, cash out. And that is so stressful. But when you feel like you're in control of it and you're choosing where your dollars are going, I mean, it's really freeing. So I love that. Thanks so much for sharing your story. And I love the business you're building. It's so incredible to start with that foundation from the beginning, because you're going to have time off and to put your family first while making the income you need. I mean, that's just an incredible story.